Hey there, folks, and welcome out to the Single Player Podcast. I'm your one and only host, I'm 16-Bit. I got a good show for this week because we're going to be talking about Sony's recent state of play, Bridget is confirmed to be trans, GTA 6 leaks, plus more. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and I'll be with you in a bit. Alright folks, we're back, and now it's time to start the show with my favorite segment, your favorite segment, everyone in the world's favorite segment. It's time for the gaming forecast. So let's see what's coming out between the week of September 25th to October 1st. Okay, on September 26th, you have just one game coming out, The Spirit and the Mouse for Windows and Nintendo Switch. And then on the 27th, you have 8 games coming out. Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, releasing in Europe for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, and Series X. Black Witchcraft for Windows. Grounded for Windows, Xbox One, and Series X. Hoko Life for Windows, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero, making its Western debut on Windows, Nintendo Switch, and PlayStation 4. Life is Strange Arcadia Bay Collection for Nintendo Switch. Moon Scars for Windows, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, and Series X. And Tunic for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and 5. Then on the 28th, you have just 2 games coming out. Deathverse Let It Die for PlayStation 4 and 5, and Never Awake for Windows. And then on the 29th, you have a whopping 17 games all coming out on one day, starting with Bullet Soul and Bullet Soul Infinite Burst, both for Nintendo Switch, Deaf Romantic for Nintendo Switch, Harvest Overlay plus Ano ko wa Orekara Hana Renai, releasing exclusively in Japan for Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4, Konosuba, God's Blessing on This Wonderful World, Cursed Relic, and the Perplexed Adventurers, releasing exclusively in Japan on Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4. La Campanella della Eterno, also releasing exclusively in Japan for Nintendo Switch. Labyrinth of Zangetsu, also releasing exclusively in Japan for Windows, Nintendo Switch, and PlayStation 4. Damn, Japan, you're getting a lot of games. The Legend of Heroes Koro no Kisenki 2 Crimson Sin, releasing exclusively in Japan for PlayStation 4 and 5. Little Witch No Beta for Windows, Nintendo Switch, and PlayStation 4. New Prince of Tennis Let's Go Daily Life from Rising Beat, releasing exclusively in Japan for Nintendo Switch. Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. Post Void for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and 5. Railgrade for Windows and Nintendo Switch. Sam & Max Beyond Time and Space Remastered for PlayStation 4, and Sam & Max Save the World Remastered for PlayStation 4, Valkyrie Elysium for PlayStation 4 and 5, and Valkyrie Profile Lyneth, also for PlayStation 4 and 5. Then on the 30th, you have 7 games coming out. Aeroheart for Windows, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, and Series X. Blade Assault for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, and Series X. Bunny Park for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, and Series X. FIFA 23 for Windows, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, and Series X and Stadia. Lemon Cake for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, and Series X. My Little Pony: A Maritime Bay Adventure for PlayStation 5, and Paw Patrol Grand Prix for Windows, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, Series X, and Stadia. And that was your gaming forecast. My god, that's a lot of games. I don't know. I'm not sure if there's really anything there that would catch my interest. Probably Konosuba, but since that's exclusively in Japan, I'm expecting that to be entirely in Japanese. So, anyway, with that being said, before I go, just remember that all dates are subject to change. In fact, you probably recognize that I mentioned Black Witchcraft a couple weeks ago, and now it shows up here again. That's because right after I recorded that segment, they pushed it back to a later date, so I'm like, crap. So, also, if you like any of the music that's played in this week's episode, just remember that links are in the description. So with that being said, let's move on to our first topic. Okay, so for our first story, we got to talk about the state of play. Now, this was, of course, a couple of weeks ago, but because Nintendo and Sony decided to schedule their presentations on the exact same day, I decided to basically split up my discussions of them onto two completely different episodes. So, last week we discussed Nintendo's Direct. This week we're talking about the state of play. And I think they actually had a pretty decent showing. They started off showing Tekken 8. That's right. Now, Tekken 8, of course, was revealed a couple of weeks before this trailer. And so this was our first look at it. And I gotta say, looks amazing. Always looks incredible. I think Tekken games have always looked really good for their era. So Tekken 8 is definitely no exception to this. It looks fantastic. It looks like it plays great. And of course, you've got Jin and Kazuya fighting against each other. You know, real father-son bonding time. But yeah, totally looking forward to it. And there's no release date for it. It just says stay tuned. So my guess is most likely 2023. Next up, we also had a couple of PlayStation VR 2 games, and they showed off, what was it, Star Wars Tales from Galaxy's Edge, which isn't Enhanced Edition, which wasn't Galaxy's Edge, isn't that their addition to, like, Disneyland and Disney World? I think that's what it is. I think this is sort of a game set in that sort of, that area. And I don't know. I'm not really a VR person, and Disney Star Wars has burned me. It burned me a long time ago, so I have no interest in this. In fact, I have no interest in VR in general, okay? I tried it a couple of years ago. I think it was Doom VFX, whatever the hell they call it. The version of Doom 2016 with that's VR. And Resident Evil 7, which I tried later. I tried that at New York City Comic Con, and I just wasn't impressed. I'm just not a VR person. All right, it does nothing for me. Like people like go on and on about the immersion, and I'm just like, it's hard to be immersed when you know you have a piece of plastic attached to your head. So anyway, that being said, they also showed off another game called Demio, I think is how they pronounced it. And it's a VR Dungeons and Dragons campaign mixed with like some card battle aspects. Looks interesting. Looks all right. I don't know. Again, I'm not a VR person. I'm not really interested in this. I will say this, though. I was getting some Eye of Judgment vibes from it. Remember that? Remember Eye of Judgment? For the kids out there that are probably too young to remember that, Eye of Judgment was basically a augmented reality card battle game that Sony put out like back in like 2007, 2008, and it used for the PS3, and it used the PlayStation Eye, which was their camera. And you would have to have this whole setup where the eye was looking down at the board, and so it would read the cards, and then on the TV it would actually like have the monsters on the cards and such. It kind of reminds me of that a bit. I'm not saying it's exactly 100% the same thing, but I'm sort of getting a vibe from it. Next up, we have Like a Dragon Ishin, and what's interesting about this one is, of course, obviously, from the sound of it, it's a part of the Yakuza franchise. But what's interesting is that it's actually a remake, because the original game was released on the PS3 and the PS4 all the way back in 2014, but it never made its way over here. So this time it's getting a complete remake, and it's making its Western debut for the PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, Series X, and Windows. And that'll be coming out sometime in February of 2023. So you got a few months until it comes out. Alright, and next up, we had a brand new trailer for Hogwarts Legacy, where they announced an entirely brand new quest that's exclusive to the PlayStation version, called the Haunted Hogsmeade Shop. That'll include an additional dungeon, shopkeeper's cosmetic set, and in-game Hogsmeade shop. Now, here's the thing. It kind of reminded me a bit I'm not sure if I'm the only one who thought this, but it kind of reminded me a bit of that one quest in Oblivion where I think it's in Anvil, where you buy the mansion for like super cheap, and then you have to like exorcise all the ghosts out of it. Like you have to go after, I think it's like the liches in the basement or whatever. Okay. It kind of reminded me of that, where like, oh, there's this person selling a shop and it's so cheap, but by the way, it's haunted. It just kind of reminded me of that. I don't know if I'm the only one who thought the exact same thing. Alright, next up, we have another game called Pacific Drive, and there's not a lot of information I could give you about this one, because all we know is that essentially you're driving an armored station wagon throughout the Pacific Northwest, and there's like all sorts of weird shit going on. There's electrical storms, there's like radiation crap going on. I don't know. It seems interesting. Actually, it does seem like it'd be a fun little like roguelike sort of game. That's what I get. That's sort of the vibe I'm getting from it. But it seems very interesting. Again, we don't know much about the story, and that's going to be coming out in 2023. And then next up, we had an update on PlayStation's brand new rewards program called PlayStation Stars. And essentially what it is you're going to be getting these sort of little mini objects as rewards for like in-game stuff, for like doing stuff in games and such. And it's mostly like stuff from Sony, like little trinkets based on Sony's past, like stereos. They showed a PlayStation 3, they showed the Pocket Station, all that kind of stuff. And here's the thing. I saw a couple of people on Twitter freaking out about this, saying, oh my god, Sony's implementing NFTs. Here's the thing. These aren't NFTs. And I'll tell you why that is. Because unlike NFTs, you don't buy these. These are stuff that are given to you for completing games. Maybe you get a certain trophy or whatever. So they're completely free. You don't actually have to purchase them. I don't think you can even sell them. They're just supposed to be little trinkets. It's kind of like if Sony implemented their own trophies from Super Smash Brothers. Remember the trophies? I think Ultimate got rid of them, but that used to be in the older Smash Brothers games. It kind of reminds me of that. Like you're getting these little trinkets and such for completing games and getting achievements and such, trophies or whatever. And that's all right. I don't mind them as long as you don't have to pay for them. Let's see. Then Sony showed off a brand new game called Sin Duality. Actually, it's from Bandai Namco, and essentially it's a mech game. It's like you pilot a mech with a AI waifu. It's the only way I could describe her. And it seems actually interesting. It kind of reminds me a bit of the mech gameplay from Lost Planet. So I'm kind of getting a vibe from that a bit, but it seems very interesting. And that'll be coming out for the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, Windows, sometime in 2023. Then we had another trailer for Project Eve. This time, however, it's now called Stellar Blade. And it's, once again, it seems like an interesting hack and slash title. And this time it's exclusive to the PlayStation 5, so they confirmed that, because there was some, I think, debate as to whether or not that was exclusive or not. Well, it's confirmed it is PlayStation 5 exclusive, and that'll be coming out also in 2023. Seems interesting, seems alright. It kind of has a Devil May Cry Bayonetta feel to it. So definitely looks like it'll be a fun little game there. Alright, next up we have a brand new game from Koei Tecmo called Rise of the Ronin. And it's action-adventure game set in Japan in 1863. Seems like a fun little hack-and-slash action-adventure game set during the Bakumatsu, which was the towards the end of the Edo period of Japanese history. And it seems it kind of involves sort of the U.S. involvement in Japan at that time. Here's the thing that gets me, though. They show this character on a ship that I think is supposed to be Matthew Perry, who is the admiral of the U.S. Navy at the time. Here's the thing, though. Perry was dead by 1858, so I don't know why they're kind of putting him in here, unless they're taking some liberties with it, because Perry didn't even live to see the Civil War, so I don't know why they're putting him in here. Or maybe it's a completely different character. I don't know. He just looks like Admiral Perry, you know. But it again seems like an interesting game. Koei Tecmo always puts out some pretty good action adventure stuff. So, and that'll be a PS5 exclusive coming in 2024. So you got a while until that one's coming out. And last but not least, we got a brand new trailer for God of War Ragnarok. And, why do we need a sequel? Look, I'm going to be quite frank. Some of you know this, some of you may not. But for those who don't, I hated God of War 2018. I despise it. I love the series. Don't get me wrong. The first 6 games, fantastic, top-notch, solid action-adventure games. Then you get to God of War 2018, and it's a complete goat fuck. I hated the gameplay. I hated the controls. Essentially, it felt like they tried taking like the controls and gameplay of The Last of Us and kind of building a God of War game around that, and it doesn't work. In my opinion, it played like crap. I didn't like it at all, and after 2 hours, I shut it off, and I haven't touched it since. I never finished the game because I have no interest in it, because they completely destroyed my interest in wanting to actually finish the friggin' thing. And so you can imagine that I have no interest in playing the sequel, because again, it's just more of the same. It's the same old gameplay, shitty gameplay from God of War 2018. So, yeah. I hated the first the 2018 game, and of course I'm gonna hate this. So I have no interest in it. Maybe some of you guys have an interest in it, and that's fine. But me personally, no, I'm done with the series. God of War 2018 was absolute garbage, and I refuse to play the sequel. I'll say this: it's getting a fancy new controller, and it looks nice, but I'm not interested in this whatsoever. And of course, that's coming out on November 9th of this year for PS5 and PS4, and pre-orders are now available. Something that I will not be doing. And that was the state of play. Overall, there were some interesting titles in there, some that I'm obviously never going to buy. But overall, it was a decent showing. Not bad. Anyway, I've ranted long enough. I'm going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this.
I hope you slept well, because now you die. Prepare to meet Iron Skillet.
Oh yeah, Tekken 4 is here. Punish your enemies with new moves, interactive environments, and new fighters. It's a legend so deep, no one just plays it. They live it. Tekken 4, rated T for teen.
Alright folks, and we're back, and first up in our next round of stories, we have an update on the Bridget saga, because yes, that thing is still going on, people were still debating it, and I say it were, because we now have official confirmation about Bridget's gender. So recently, Arc System Works put out the 11th volume of their Developer's Backyard Q&A, and Daisuke Ishiwatari himself addressed the issue and gave us official confirmation on Bridget's gender, saying, and I quote, "We've received many inquiries about Bridget's gender. After the events of Bridget's story in arcade mode, she self-identifies as a woman. So, as to whether he or she would be the correct pronoun for Bridget, the answer would be she." There you go, ladies and gentlemen. It's officially confirmed Bridget is in fact a trans woman. Now, even I said, even though I was a little skeptical about this, about the initial claim, even I said, if it's officially confirmed, I would accept it. And okay, I accept it. Bridget is, of course, a trans woman. Bridget's a she. Alright, that's fine. Let's move on, okay? Let's move on from this entire thing, because this debate is still going on, okay? Always was still going on until this officially came out. And let me tell you something. The back and forth I saw on this debate was just downright disgusting. It really was. The vitriol, the toxic comments, all that sort of shit. It was downright disgusting from both sides of the argument. And I don't want to hear about this. Well, this side said this. Yeah, and your side says something even worse, okay? This is the problem when it comes to internet arguments, is that no one ever wants to discuss this stuff calmly, civilly. All anyone wants to do is just scream insults at each other, and it's nuts. It's completely fucking nuts. Okay, and I'm going to address both sides first off on the femboys, because there's two different groups. You've had the femboys and the trans people. Okay, first off on the femboy side of things. Look, I get it. Okay, Bridget was one of your characters, and you lost one of them. Okay, on the bright side, you still got Felix and Astolfo. Okay, but here's the thing. Throwing around nasty comments and creating fake emails was never a winning strategy. That was never going to help you. It was so fucking stupid to even do that sort of shit. If you wanted Bridget to be still a boy, what you should have done was just continued writing to Arc System Works, civilly, of course, and explaining why you want Bridget to continue being a boy. That's all you had to do. That's all you had to do. But instead, what did they do? They just went on Twitter and screamed and yelled at other people about this entire thing and created fake emails. As if no one was going to eventually come out with evidence showing, hey, it's complete and utter bullshit. Okay? Even I was skeptical of the fake email that was floating around. As for the opposite side of the argument, look, I get it, okay? You wanted trans representation in the game, that's fine, and you got it. But shoving that in people's faces and acting as if it's some sort of win over others is just, it's dickish. It's a complete asshole move, and it doesn't help your entire argument. It just makes you look like an asshole. The thing is, I also saw a couple of comments talking about how we need to genocide femboys, and they need to hatch from their eggs and all that bullshit. And again, that doesn't help your movement. That just makes you look like a complete asshole. In my humble opinion, I think both sides of this argument just proves that they're terminally online weirdos. That's it. They're just people who spend all time on the internet, and they need, in my opinion, people like that need to have their internet access revoked, okay? Because that's not good for your mental health, okay? I guarantee you basically take away their internet access, and all of this shit goes away. All of this arguing, all of this debating, and all that kind of vitriolic comments and all that kind of shit just goes away. Fucking hell, man. Don't get me wrong. I am pro First Amendment. I'm pro free speech, but I think some people just mentally cannot handle the internet. They just simply can't, okay? It doesn't matter what you are, okay? It doesn't matter your gender, your race, your sex, your orientation, religion. No, it doesn't matter, okay? Some people regardless of that shit, just cannot mentally handle the internet. And I think they need to have their accesses revoked, because some people get so absorbed into it that they just lose all self-control. They can't just simply log off. You know, that's how you usually tell people, hey, if people are being an asshole to you, if you're being trolled, just log off. Like, that's the simple answer. But some people just cannot mentally handle that. They can't, they lose all self-control and just can't simply log off. They have to keep going and going and going. This is why lolcows exist. I know that technically a lot of people think that that's a Kiwi Farm term. That term has been around before Kiwi Farms even existed, okay? I remember people calling others that, like, over 10 years ago. So it's not a new term. But that's what happens. People, they lose all self-control. They can't simply handle the fact that they've been trolled, or people on the internet can disagree with them, and they just lose that self-control and simply have to constantly defend themselves or attack others. And it's just like, if you can't show any sort of self-control, if you can't just simply log off when people are shitting on you, then there's a problem with you. And I think people need to constantly remind themselves that hey, you're starting to get, worked up, time to log off for a bit. Even I had to take a breather for a little bit because I started getting a little angry. So I had to take a short break from recording the segment. And, now I'm a little bit more calmer than when I first started. But it's just one of those things where you just have to constantly remind yourself to just log off and walk away. I think I've ranted long enough. So, yeah. With that being said, let's move on to our next topic. Alright, and next up, we have an update on Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp. As some of you know, the game was actually, it was supposed to come out in April, but then it was delayed because of the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia. And so there's been a question as to whether or not it's eventually going to come out, or sometime this year, or maybe next year. Well, we have an answer. And it comes from Stephen Totillo, who apparently asked Nintendo, and they got a answer from a representative saying, and I quote, "The release has been delayed. We will announce the new date once it has been determined." So I understand why they canceled it, because, well, not canceled, but pushed it back, because like that April, it was still, the war was at its height. And obviously, it's still ongoing, but the problem is, we don't know when it's going to end at this point. It could be this year, the end of this year. It could be going into 2023. Who knows? So I understand delaying it early on in the war was a good idea, but I think eventually Nintendo's going to have no choice but to just come out with it, regardless of where this war goes. Okay? I understand why they decided to push it back. It's understandable, but at the same time, you're just going to have to eventually release it, regardless of when this war ends. Because, like I said, who knows? It could end by the end of this year. It could go into 2023. Hell, it could go into 2024. Delaying it until the end of the war, I think, is a bit ridiculous. So, And this is mostly because I'm a huge fan of the series, and I just want a new Advanced War game. I'll take anything I can at this point, because it's like I get it, Fire Emblem's more popular, but come on, Nintendo, throw us a bone here. But anyway, so I was hoping when it came to the last Direct, we would finally get like an announcement. But now it's starting to get ridiculous. So, Nintendo, please, for the love of God, just release it. Just do us a favor and release the damn thing. Anyway, moving on to the next story. And next up, we have another update from Konami. Now, a couple of weeks, I think it was like last week, and I was going to talk about this, but I decided not to because there wasn't enough to really talk about. But I think it was like last week, Konami hinted at a classic franchise returning. And so when that was announced, I think it was just before the Nintendo Direct and the State of Play, there were speculations out the ass. People were thinking it was remasters of Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 and 3, and some saying it was remasters of Silent Hill and all this kind of stuff. Well, we now have official confirmation as to what it is, and it turns out It's none of those. It's Suikoden, baby. That's right. Suikoden 1 and 2 are getting HD remasters for modern platforms, including Steam, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PlayStation 4 sometime next year. And you know what? I'm glad about that, because Suikoden is one of those franchises that just gets completely forgotten. You know, when it comes to Konami, everyone talks about, they talk about Silent Hill or Metal Gear Solid. Those are the two big ones. And then you get Contra and Castlevania. But Suikoden always gets kind of ignored, and it's a damn shame because they're really good games. So I'm glad to see that Suikoden 1 and 2 are getting HD remasters, especially Suikoden 2. That game, that is like one of the rarest games to find for the original PlayStation. Like, you're talking about a game that goes for anywhere between $300 to $500. Yeah, that's how expensive we're talking here. I mean, the first game used to be quite affordable. Keyword on used to, because the price has actually jumped up. No joke. I just looked it up, and it's now going for anywhere between like $80 to $100. And that's just weird to me, because I remember up until a few years ago, it was pretty cheap. You can get it for like $20-$30. That was it. In fact, I found my copy at a game store for like $10. Now, granted, that was over 10 years ago, but still, up until just a few years ago, it was super cheap to get. So I'm just glad to see the series is getting some love. Hey, maybe it might introduce an entirely brand new generation to the franchise. And if it does well enough, who knows? We could also get Suikoden 6. I can only hope. So anyway, with that being said, I'm going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this.
ファミコンウォーズが出たぞファミコンウォーズが出たぞ今度は DS で2画面だ今度は DS で2画面だのめり込めるのめり込めるのめり込めるのめり込める母ちゃんたちには内緒だぞ母ちゃんたちには内緒だぞファミコンウォーズ DS 今度は DS で出たぞ
Alright folks, we're back, and first up in our next round of stories, we got some big news coming out of Rockstar because GTA 6 has officially been leaked, or at least gameplay footage of it. Now, at first, I was skeptical of the claims because I'm like, okay, come on. Like, you know, this shit happens all the time. There's whole-ass YouTube channels dedicated to supposed leaks of GTA 6, alright? So, of course, I'm going to be a little cautious here, but it turned out, no, it's true. It's completely true. Apparently, someone going under the name Teapot Tuber Hacker posted on the GTA forums a zip file saying, here are 90 footage / clips from GTA 6. It's possible I could leak more data soon. GTA 5 and 6 source code and assets, GTA 6 test building, etc. And apparently, the footage shows early development footage. Now, understand, a lot of people are saying, oh, this looks crap. But it's early development footage. It's not supposed to look nice. Early development footage never looks good. So, judging the game based off of that, I think is a little too... It's too early to do that. But apparently, this actually... it wasn't just gameplay. It showed full-on gameplay, gunplay, robberies, fully voiced conversations, debugging elements. And what's interesting is it actually confirms some of the rumors about GTA 6, about the female protagonist, and Vice City. Yep, that's right. Vice City has basically been confirmed at this point. Now, there's two reasons, obviously, why we know this is confirmed. First off is the fact that when the gameplay footage started showing up on social media, Rockstar and Take-Two started instituting all sorts of DMCA takedowns. On top of that, they also released a statement basically confirming it, saying, and I quote, this is coming from their Twitter account, a message from Rockstar Games. We recently suffered a network intrusion in which an unauthorized third party illegally accessed and downloaded confidential information from our systems, including early development footage for our next GTA. At this time, we do not anticipate any disruption in our live game services or any long-term effect on the development of our ongoing projects. We are extremely disappointed to have any details of our next game shared with you all in this way. Our work on the next GTA will continue as planned, and we can remain as committed as ever to delivering an experience to you, our players, that truly exceeds our expectations. We will update everyone again soon, and of course we will properly introduce you to this next game when it's ready. We want to thank everyone for their ongoing support through this situation, the Rockstar Games team. So, there you have it, folks. GTA 6 has been leaked. Now, obviously, it's gameplay footage. It's not like a build of the game that has been leaked. And I'll say this, Rockstar actually got lucky because in the past, games have been leaked, and it's not just gameplay footage. It's actual full builds. I remember when Half-Life 2 was leaked. Oh, yeah, this was around, I think it was 2003? I was still in high school when it happened. Basically, what happened was, because they actually interviewed the person who was responsible for it. Apparently, it was some kid in Germany that was really excited to play Half-Life 2. So he got into Valve servers and downloaded a alpha beta build of the game. I don't know. I don't know what type of build it was. It was an early build of it. And he just wanted to play it. That was it. He didn't actually want to like share it with anyone, but he had shared it with a friend, and that person leaked it out. So he was kind of held responsible simply, well, obviously it's illegal to hack into anyone's computer systems, but he got the brunt of most of it. I don't think his friend really got anything, which is a real shame because his friend technically leaked all of it. But it happened with that. I remember it happened with Doom 3 back in, I think, like 2004, 2005. An early build of it was also leaked. So this has happened in the past. It's nothing new, but I'll say this, Rockstar was lucky that it was just gameplay footage and not an entire build of the game. But I will say this, it is nice to see that Vice City is coming to the HD universe. You know, when was the last time we actually saw Vice City? 2007, Vice City Stories? It's been a long time, 15 years, and it's only been in the 80s. We haven't seen a modern Vice City, so I'm glad to see GTA 6 will actually be set there. That being said, though, I guarantee you Rockstar's security is definitely going to double over now because of this. Like, there's no way in hell anyone's going to get any sort of super secret information out now. So until they officially confirm GTA 6, we're just going to have to wait for any more news. Anyway, let's move on to our next story. Okay, and next up. So recently, Axios did a interview with the CEO of Ubisoft, Wignall, and there was a lot of questions back and forth, and the one that really caught my attention was about the price hike of their games. Oh yeah, apparently their game Skull and Bones will be their first title that'll cost $70. Well, they've basically confirmed that essentially this is going to be a new thing from now on. He said, and I quote, "Some of the games will come at the same price as the competition. The big AAA games will come at $70. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. So if you want any major releases, the next major Assassin's Creed or whatever, you're going to be looking at $70 for that. You know, here's the thing, okay? I see a lot of people defending this shit saying, well, you know, I mean, game price, the cost of game development has jumped up and all this kind of shit. And I've also seen people say crap about how, like, well, you know, games in the old days used to cost $70. Here's the thing about that, okay? I'm going to dispel that bullshit right here and right now, okay? Not every game back in the old days cost $70, okay? That was, because you have to understand something. Games back in the old days, okay, the prices were based around the manufacturing cost of the cartridge itself. So, for the most part, most games cost anywhere between $30 to $50, okay? Only the games that had really, that were massive in size or required special components like special chipsets or add-ons and such, like stuff like Final Fantasy, okay? That cost a lot of money. That cost, I think, like $70 when it came out. Okay, but there's a reason for that, because it's a massive, massive RPG. Most RPGs were that price. And the same thing could be said for games of the Genesis, Super Nintendo. Every other cartridge era basically is the exact same thing. They charge the game depending on how much it costs to manufacture it. All right. When you get to the CD era, the Saturn, the PlayStation, that's when you start seeing game prices even out to around $50. Okay? Suddenly, games like Crash Bandicoot and Final Fantasy VII cost the exact same amount. Why? Because CDs, even though they hold a bunch of data, they cost significantly much less than your cartridge. So, because of that, they were able to charge games at an even $50. Okay? I know this because I have a Expert Gamer magazine from January of 2001 that has an entire 3-page spread talking for EB games, and it lists a whole bunch of PS1 games, some which were brand new at the time, such as Final Fantasy IX, costing $50. Brand new PS2 games like Ridge Racer 5 and Tekken Tag Tournament cost $50 because DVDs were only slightly more expensive than your average CD. So I think a lot of this is simply because game development budgets are out of control. You have these massive teams of around maybe 100 people working on a single game, and of course that's going to cost a lot of money over the course of several years. When you have that many people working on a single title, that's another thing. Okay, it used to be back in the old days that game development teams were much smaller when it came to even bigger titles. You were looking at teams of anywhere between maybe 10 to 30 people on a single game. That was it. Okay? Starting in the 6th generation, I think this is 7th generation, sorry. I think this is why you started seeing games jump from $50 to $70, because suddenly you had development teams were no longer, 10 to maybe 30 people. Now it was 50, 60, 70 people working on a single title. And the more people you add on to a game, of course, the more expensive it gets. And then you got the marketing costs for these games, which are also ridiculous. You know, look, I get it. Like, back in the old days, you really needed to go out of your way to market your game because social media didn't exist. You had to put out print ads, you had to put out commercials, all that sort of shit. Okay? Now, you barely need to do that. In fact, there's a lot of indie games that sell extremely well. Why? Because of social media. They're able to get their game out there without actually spending a dime on marketing. And this is a huge problem with the industry that no one wants to address or fix. And I don't think charging $70 for your game is actually going to fix it, okay? All you're going to do is basically limit how many people can actually spend money on the game, especially right now in this economy. You see, whenever there's a recession, okay, entertainment is always the first one to get hit because it's not really a necessity, okay? So charging $70 on the verge of a recession is a stupid move. Incredibly fucking stupid. And I think, honestly, that's how the entire industry is going to crash, okay? They're going to get so full of themselves, they're going to start charging $70 for almost every fucking release at a time when no one can actually afford it, and that's going to bite them right in the fucking ass. And you know what? It's going to be their fault. So, anyway, with that being said, let's move on to our next story. Okay, and for our next story, we got to talk about Street Fighter 6 for a bit because we've got a lot of reveals this past week. Especially character reveals. For example, E Honda, Blanca, Dalsim, they've all been confirmed for the game, as well as Ken Masters. But here's the thing. As it turns out, they've actually replaced the voice actor for the character. So now he's going to be voiced by David Matranga. Now, and that's fine. They got no problem there. However, according to tweets by the former voice actor for Ken, Ruben Langdon, it might have been a little bit more political as for the change. He said, and I quote, "I am sad to no longer be the voice of Ken because he is a character dear to my heart. There are many lessons here in this situation. I tried my best to be empathetic to people on all sides, but I must be myself no matter what and continue on my journey. I do not own Ken. He is property of Capcom. I am happy to have added my essence to the different versions of him over the years. I was not the first Ken and certainly not the last. Hopefully the next actor will take the character to the next level and the audience will continue to love the legend that has become Ken Masters." And that's pretty, I mean, it's nice to see that there's no hard feelings about it or anything like that. But here's the thing. A lot of people have been wondering as to why he was recast. And it appears it might be because of his own political opinions. Because on his personal Twitter, apparently he has voiced anti-COVID lockdowns, anti-forced vaccinations, and very pro-right-leaning opinions. And of course, as we know, having the wrong opinions can get you fired from your job. So some people were, of course, sad about this, but there was a lot of people celebrating, which in my opinion is just sad. You know, just completely sad that people were celebrating this. In fact, others were saying maybe they should retroactively recast David Matranga as Ken over Ruben Langdon. For what? For voicing a political opinion on his personal Twitter? It's ridiculous. You know what? You know what it is? Who gives a flying fuck what the voice actor personally thinks? He's saying this shit on his personal Twitter account. I think it's ridiculous to basically recast someone because of what they said on their personal Twitter. You know? I've always thought it's completely ridiculous. There was a couple of, for example, last year, the head of, oh god, what was it? The company, the studio behind Maneater, okay? They fired the guy because he voiced his support for the Texas abortion bill last year, okay? On his personal Twitter account, okay? And you had people calling for him to be fired, and they actually did it. And I thought that was ridiculous. He was doing it on his own personal Twitter account. It's ridiculous to fire someone because of what they said on social media on their own personal accounts. If he had said that on the official account for that studio, then yeah, okay, I could see it. But no, that was his own personal Twitter account. Same thing here. He's saying this shit on his own personal Twitter account. Who cares? He's not saying it on the official Street Fighter or Capcom Twitter. So I think firing him because of that is ridiculous. If that is true, keep in mind, his tweets don't exactly say it. He hints at it. Okay? So it's not entirely 100% confirmed, but it is sort of hinted that is the reason why. And if we're going to go there, if we're going to say, well, voice actors should be held accountable or some shit like that, okay, there's a lot of voice actors on the left that I've seen post some pretty fucked up shit, okay? So let's hold them up to that standard. Yeah, exactly. You're not going to see that. It's ridiculous because, like I said, who gives a fuck what a voice actor thinks on social media? Who cares what someone says on their personal personal account? Okay, when it comes to creators, all right, who cares what they think? Like that's completely beyond. They should be their works should be judged on its own merit. It should not be judged on the person's personal political account. It's ridiculous. Political opinions, you know what I mean? Okay. It's ridiculous to do so. There's a lot of game developers whose political opinions I completely disagree with. Yet I don't mind playing their games. Like, for example, I don't agree with Koichi Sugiyama. Okay? The dude's political opinions I think are quite disgusting, but I still enjoy his music. I think his Dragon Quest music soundtracks are phenomenal. Okay? I'm not going to suddenly go after Dragon Quest series because one person had political opinions I personally disagreed with. It's ridiculous. It's stupid shit. Okay? And honestly, I find that to be just completely sad. If you're basically obsessing over the fact that someone who's part of a major game franchise has political opinions you disagreed with, you're a sad, pathetic person. And like I said before about people who honestly deserve to be, I think are mentally unfit to be on the internet, that's the kind of people right there. People who say, well, your entire livelihood should basically be destroyed because of your personal political opinions. You're a sad, pathetic pile of shit if you think that way. All right? Just sad. Just a complete loser, in my humble opinion. Anyway, guys, I'm going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this.
Grand Theft Auto, Vice City, coming soon on PlayStation 2. Rated M for mature.
Alright, folks, and that's it for this week. I want to thank you all for listening. Remember, if you liked any of the music I played on this week's episode, you can find links in the description. Also, you can find the links to the music playlist in the description. Don't worry, I remembered it this week. And that's it. I want to thank you all for listening, and I'll see you next week. And remember to keep gaming.